Jordan Walker stood confidently in front of Urban Lux, the flagship store of his prestigious luxury brand. In his hands, he clutched a plain cardboard box labeled Samples. His attire, worn jeans paired with a casual hoodie, gave him the appearance of an ordinary delivery driver maneuvering through Manhattan's lively streets. However, beneath this seemingly unremarkable exterior, his heart pounded, not with anxiety, but with a firm sense of purpose. Today, Jordan wasn't merely dropping off some samples. No, this delivery carried a deeper mission, a spontaneous test designed to unveil the truth about how his employees treated individuals they considered insignificant. Would his staff pass this silent challenge? As he stepped through the pristine glass doors of the store, the polished, upscale interior greeted him, an undeniable reflection of the success and elegance his brand had come to symbolize. Yet, what occurred next sharply contrasted the welcoming professionalism he believed was the foundation of his company. Two sales associates, Mark and Rachel, barely spared him a glance. Instead, they exchanged scornful remarks, their condescending laughter cutting through the air like a razor. "Wrong door," Mark sneered dismissively, his eyes narrowing with disdain. Rachel joined in, her smirk brimming with smug superiority. "Yeah, this isn't your kind of store," she said, her voice dripping with arrogance. Little did they know, the man standing before them, the one they so easily mocked, was none other than their employer, the founder and driving force behind Urban Lux. And Jordan wasn't about to let this incident go unnoticed. Each biting comment and derisive snicker only strengthened Jordan's resolve. He remained rooted in place, determined to observe their behavior until the very end. Would their conceited attitudes cost them their careers? How would Jordan confront such blatant disrespect? Stay tuned to uncover the pivotal moment when the truth is laid bare, a story that imparts a lasting lesson well beyond the final words. With quiet determination, Jordan placed the cardboard box on the sleek, gleaming counter. Though his expression remained calm, a fire of indignation burned fiercely within him. "Good morning," he greeted them evenly, his tone polite despite the judgment evident in their gazes. Mark barely lifted his head, his smirk broadening as though he'd already decided Jordan was beneath his notice. "The back door's that way," Mark said, jerking a thumb over his shoulder with an air of indifference. Jordan took a deliberate breath, carefully choosing his words. "I was instructed to deliver these samples here," he replied, his voice steady and composed. Internally, his mind churned. He had anticipated some level of resistance, but the blatant hostility was sharper than he had imagined. Rachel, engrossed in her phone, didn't bother masking her irritation. "We don't usually deal with deliveries up here," she said, her tone oozing superiority. "Just leave it and go." Her dismissive words stung like a slap, but Jordan didn't waver. Meeting her eyes directly, he maintained his composure. He saw the apathy etched in her gaze, a total lack of acknowledgement, not just disrespect but outright dismissal. "Thank you," Jordan responded, his voice calm but layered with a quiet resolve. "However, I'd prefer to speak with the manager directly." Mark let out a scoffing laugh, leaning casually against the counter. "Listen, buddy," he began, his voice rising as he drew the attention of nearby shoppers. "You're lucky we're even letting you stand here." A surge of anger threatened to surface, but Jordan quelled it. Years of experience had taught him the strength of restraint, and he wasn't about to let them seize control of the situation. Not yet. From across the store, Linda Carter, the store manager, froze in her tracks. Her heart skipped a beat as recognition dawned. Hurrying over, her expression shifted to one of alarm mingled with determination. "Mr. Walker," she whispered urgently, her eyes darting between Jordan and the oblivious associates. "What are you doing here?" Jordan offered her a faint, knowing smile, a subtle nod to his true identity. "I'm observing," he replied quietly, his tone steady yet commanding. He didn't need to elaborate further. Linda understood instantly. Her face flushed with embarrassment as she glanced back at her colleagues. Mark and Rachel, still engrossed in their mocking exchange, remained unaware of the storm brewing right in front of them. "The manager's busy," Mark interjected curtly, his smugness unshaken. "Just leave the box here and go." His tone sharpened, almost challenging Jordan to escalate the situation. But Jordan didn't budge. Instead, he met Mark's gaze with unwavering intensity. His silence spoke volumes, its power far greater than any words he could utter. Linda finally stepped forward, her voice slicing through the thick tension like a sharp blade.
"Mark."
"Rachel." "A word."
"Now."
Her tone was unyielding, leaving no room for hesitation or argument. Startled, the two associates exchanged nervous glances, their earlier smugness replaced with confusion as they followed her aside. Once they were out of earshot of customers, Linda fixed them with a piercing stare. "Do either of you have any idea who that is?" she asked, her voice low but brimming with urgency. Mark, his previous bravado now wavering, stammered, "A delivery guy?" His smirk faltered, uncertainty creeping into his expression. Linda's eyes narrowed as she delivered the truth with unrelenting precision. "That," she said firmly, her words landing like thunderclaps, "is Jordan Walker, the founder of Urban Lux." The revelation hit them like a ton of bricks. Mark's face drained of color, the confidence he'd worn like armor now shattered. Rachel's phone slipped from her trembling hands, clattering onto the counter in a deafening echo. Both turned to look at Jordan, who had silently removed his cap and now observed them with a calm yet penetrating intensity. The weight of their actions was suddenly unbearable, and their shame was etched into every line of their faces. Mark tried to speak, his voice barely above a whisper. "Mr. Walker, But Jordan raised a hand, silencing him instantly. His voice, quiet but edged with an unshakable steel, carried through the room. "You thought," he began, his words deliberate, "that I didn't belong here. That I wasn't worth your respect." Every syllable was precise, cutting through their defenses and leaving no space for excuses. His gaze never wavered as he continued, each question piercing deeper. "Is this how you treat all delivery workers? Or just the ones who don't fit your idea of who deserves to be here?" The room fell into an almost oppressive silence. Customers and staff alike turned their attention to the unfolding confrontation, their curiosity quickly morphing into reflection. Jordan's voice rose slightly, not out of anger, but with purpose and conviction. "This company was built on respect, hard work, and inclusion," he declared. "I started as a delivery driver myself. I know what it's like to be underestimated. And I will not stand by while anyone is treated as less than." Mark and Rachel stood motionless, their faces pale as Jordan's words settled heavily on their shoulders. The shift in power was palpable, and there was no escaping the consequences of their actions. This wasn't just about humiliation, it was about exposing a flaw in the very foundation of Urban Lux. Jordan knew this moment wasn't just for them, it was for everyone watching. It was a lesson, a chance to rebuild the culture he had worked so hard to create. Jordan stepped forward, standing tall in the center of the store. His steady gaze swept across the room, meeting the eyes of employees and customers alike. The air hung heavy with the weight of his words, but he spoke with unwavering calm. "Respect," he began, his tone measured but powerful, "isn't a privilege. It's a fundamental right." His voice carried the strength of his convictions, reaching every corner of the store. Every person who walks through these doors, whether they're a CEO or a delivery driver, deserves to be treated with dignity. That's not just a value. That's the foundation of Urban Lux. His words resonated deeply, not as a reprimand, but as a call to action, a challenge to everyone present to do better. Turning to Linda, he gave her a small nod of appreciation. She had stepped up when it mattered most, and he wanted her to know it hadn't gone unnoticed. Then, addressing the remaining staff, he added, "Moments like these define us, not by our mistakes, but by how we choose to grow from them." As the crowd slowly began to disperse, murmurs of reflection filled the room. Linda stayed behind, her expression resolute as she prepared the necessary paperwork to finalize the dismissal of Mark and Rachel. Meanwhile, Jordan lingered, his eyes drifting to the store's gleaming facade. The reflection of Manhattan's bustling streets reminded him of where he had started and how far he had come. For Jordan, this was more than a personal victory. It was a reminder of the work that lay ahead. He took a deep breath, his voice low but determined. "We've got work to do," he murmured, speaking more to himself than anyone else. Already, ideas for meaningful change began to take shape in his mind. The very next day, Urban Lux announced two transformative initiatives: mandatory diversity training for all employees and a scholarship program dedicated to supporting delivery workers who aspired to more. These measures weren't just about fixing a momentary lapse. They were about creating a lasting impact. This story isn't just about Jordan Walker or Urban Lux. It's about a lesson that resonates far beyond the walls of a store, a lesson about respect, growth, and standing firm in your values. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let's ensure moments like these inspire change. Subscribe to Justice Loom and help us reach 10,000 subscribers. Together, we can keep sharing stories that challenge, inspire, and make us all better.